to make it right. Some will go on easy without putting up a fight. Measure this, measure that, just be sure to check it twice. 1/1000th of an inch is what it takes to make it right. It's what it takes to make it right. It's what it takes to make it right.
Well, hello, my name's Ralph and welcome to the channel. It's my time, let's go. Today we got something a little different, and I've been looking forward to this, and it's sort of been an ongoing discussion for a while, but today it's happened. Over the weekend I received a crate here, and what it is the bottom end and stuff to a motorcycle named Marley. This journey started quite a few years ago. Brad Fisher is a gentleman's name, and him and his father dropped in to visit, a couple summers in a row actually, because Brad's parents live up here in Truro and he lives in the Cayman Islands. So as we were going along, he reached out and found an old Harley in a shed, from my understanding from an old Vietnam vet that he bought it from, and it was in hard shape and it needed to be rebuilt. So through the times he's been watching my channel. We helped him through transmission stuff and trying to get sorts out which was best and what he had and all those sort of things that comes along with what you have to do when you start from scratch, which is exactly where he's at. So he approached me and asked me if I would do the bottom end of the motor and make sure that it was tight and right and sound, and I said yes. And Brad tried to ship it last year and had a bit of a problem with customs. They wouldn't let it through, my understanding, because it was a smell of oil or something, I don't know, but in any case he wasn't able to bring it up. So this year he went through all the paces and he had it shipped up, and I know he's arriving in Nova Scotia actually this week, so I'm looking forward to seeing him. And the box came here on the weekend. So I'm anxious to start this project, and as you know, I love being a part of something that's built with tender love and care, and that's restored and that's brought back and it has a story. And as I say, I always hope that I'll be a piece of the story somewhere down the road. So today we're going to pop the box open, have a look, see what we got, see what we're into, and start forming a plan to get Marley's bottom end together so that it'll be good and strong and ready for the other pieces that he has down there. All right, let's have a look and see. And there she is. There she is. Getting it out of there would be a little trick for this old fella, but we'll figure out a way to get it up and get it out. So she's all packaged up in there. We'll have to figure out how to get it out to start with and see what we can do and get it out of my bench, have a look at it, see what we're into. I don't see oil pump and stuff, but oh yeah, there's stuff underneath of it, so we'll take it from there. So we'll see if we can get it apart, get it lifted out, see where we're at. The oil pump body and the drive gears, everything in there that I need. All right. So as with any project, you got to start out looking at what you got. We have to assess what we have and what kind of condition that it's in. So I'm going to start with the small pieces here, as I can see. And it's got the big drive gear, the big wide one, which is early. Pre-73, I think. Not sure, I'd have to look it up exactly, but I think it was 73 when they switched to the smaller one with a different drive. So that's what we have there. Our little oil pump drive gear for the pinion shaft. Looks to be in great condition. It's a little spacer, a couple keys that we'll replace, and the nut that goes with it. Now, see what we have for our oil pump gears. They look good, just need a little cleaning, but those ones look fine. We're looking for deterioration on the teeth, you know, any kind of little marks so you can see where it's the hardness is starting to break away, but those ones look good. Our main drive gear. And it has some wear there. Not excessive by any means. Remember to have a second look at that. The original studs out of there. We wire wheel those, clean those up. They'll be good to go. Those. Two with the washers. There's our other gear. Oil pump shaft. Score it up a bit there. We'll clean it up and have a look. Bolt. Another bolt. Alright, there's our spring for our up in under here. What he had on there, what that is exactly. They have an oil line of some sort coming off of that. To ask him about that. The body looks good. And the main body. Let's see what we got. Something to watch out for on these old pumps is this shaft that runs through here. And this is what your gears run on. And when they get worn, what will happen is that'll actually fall right out of there. And it should be a press fit in there to keep your gears in line. If it's loose and it falls right out, your gears can chew into the body and etc. Body is no good. No good. So, with all that being said, I think we're going to be looking at a new pump, Bradley. I'm really thinking that that's the case by the looks of it. But the pump is bad. I don't know whether you're going to be able to see this or not. I'll try to put a light in there. And if you look around the back of the body, you can actually, in here, you can actually see grooves cut right into the pump body. And that's no good. Something's gone through it and torn a big groove. That's the other side. Something's gone through it and torn a big groove in it. It's quite bad. I don't think that I'd go through rebuilding this motor and putting that pump on it. I wouldn't feel good about it, so at least Brad's here and I'm going to be able to talk to him about it and see if he wants to go for like a good S&S pump, or everybody's running within a budget. So we have to take everything into consideration when we look at that. We'll take it from there. So I like to write everything down on the whiteboard as I start, and that gives me a good idea of where I'm going. Initially started our list of things that we needed, and then we took measurements off of a lot of the things that we needed to measure and put our specs so that they're, you know, worn out and where we're supposed to be. First issue that we got to deal with, and I'm sure that there'll be more as we go, so we won't know till we get it all apart, and I'm hoping there's nothing major and that everything is rebuildable, and I'm hoping I can make everything good as it can be. You always run into these sort of things with these old motors, and it's rare to find that old where something hasn't gone through the pump at one time. You never know why they were parked either, what went wrong. We'll have to take it one piece at a time. One piece at a time. He definitely needs to be rebuilt. Yeah, she's wonky in there. She's wonky. Good stuff. Get our cam cover off. Have a look inside. My biggest concern with the older motors actually is the breather hole in them. Lots of times there's been stuff gone through the breather and it's made a mess of it. So I hope that's not the case where I see stuff in the pump. But if it is and that happens, I do have the tool to oversize it, and we can put an oversized Jim's gear in there and it'll be as good as new. So let's get the cover off. Let's have a look and let's see what's inside. Make sure the threads are good in the cam cover here. Oh, 70 cover. She is early. There's a little groove there, but it's very, very minor. Very minor. Oh yeah, looks fine. Looks fine. I've seen ones that were way worse than that, buddy. Way worse. It's just very slight in there. So I think I just take a little bit of time and clean that up in there, and we'll be just fine. No big grooves in, down through anywhere. Oh, ooh, there is a big groove there in the back. There is a large one down in the back, so we may have to oversize that. Get a Jim's gear in there. I got to look at what I'm into, because we're early cases. Although we should be all right with it. I'll have to have a good looking in there. That is for the primary oiler back there. Early gear, so some shims for that. Small tit. Got no case bolts. We don't have any case bolts that I can see. I'm gonna go out and check once more in the box out there, but I didn't see any bolts for the cases, so we'll have to have a look. Rebuild the rods, new bushings in, get them sized out to what they should be. All pretty clean in there now, and that is nice. So only got a couple holding it together here. Two case bolts. The main shaft is toast here. Yeah, that's gonna have to be replaced for sure. New sprocket shaft for sure. Needs case bolts. They're on my list. Yeah, pinion bearing. And we'll have to put the two halves together here and line lap them and see what size pinion bearing that we're going to need for inside there. We'll figure it out. There we go, spiral lock on that. Go. Put our pinion bearings and washers in. So that looks all right. Okay, I guess we'll just set that up and press that case off, and then we'll have that apart. And then we'll proceed to take the rest of the bottom end apart. Split it, see what we're into, and what sort of parts we need to order for it. It says 78 number on here. So like there's 78 flywheels. We'll proceed to press it out now. So we'll knock the bearing out of there and the seal. Some of the crud out here. I'm going to leave the bearing races in because I'm going to set these up on the table and lap these case surfaces to make sure that they're nice and true. Of course, it involves lapping compound, so I'm not putting new bearings in there. So I'm going to leave the races in there so that I can line lap the cases and use those races while I'm doing it. I also want to lap these surfaces here to make sure they're true. And with using all that lapping compound and such, we don't want to leave the races in there. There's a chance it can get in there or get in between where the big C-clip is in there, and we don't want to take any chance on not being able to get that out. So we'll do those sort of procedures before we move on. That way we know that it'll be all done and we don't get lapping compound anywhere inside of it. All right, so we set that aside. Alrighty. Get this up here. See if we can get it apart. There we go. All right. my puller. So we're going to pull the bearing off. You have to be careful when you put your puller on that you don't catch into the lip underneath this bearing, and you'll just twist it all to pieces. So we're just on the outside of it, and it should come off without much problem. There we go. Beauty. Okay, yeah, this little lip here, you get caught on that lip or below that lip, you just twist your puller and it won't want to come off, that's for sure. Now we're going to see if we can get that nut off at 1 5/16 inches. There, I'm a-hoping. Okay. Good. Lucky. Now getting it apart is what's going to be a trick. Sometimes they come apart easy, and sometimes we're going to have to put a bunch of heat to it to get it to release. I've got a few tools. I've got a little piece of brass here with a groove in it that'll lock up into that so that I can haul off and give it a good smack. And we get a 70 flywheel on this side. Sometimes they'll pop right off, and other times they'll test your patience. Give her a couple smacks and see where it's at. There we go. No heat, not giving me a hard time today. Nice. If it doesn't come off, you know, you just heat around that nut and then keep tapping it around, but 90 degrees to the pin is usually the best place to hit it. See what kind of joys we got in here. Okay. The cages don't look bad in there. The crank pin actually looks pretty nice. Not too bad. I've seen a lot worse than that. So we'll have to mic it and see where we're at. Take our measurements. But as it goes now, it looks pretty good. With it all coming apart, it could have been a lot worse, and it looks pretty good. So I'll start ordering up some of the things I got to do. I'll be talking to Brad about an oil pump, and of course I got to get all the case bolts, and I got to check and see just what year oil pump I can get away with and what we're using in there. So, all right, a little shiny, but not worn too bad at all. We'll probably just put that in there with our Jim's tool and just put a nice new surface on it, take some measurements, and you know, get the size that we need for it. Might be, you know, a couple thou bigger, but enough to make it work right. So, and probably some wrist pins. Success today, not too bad. I thought that was going to be a pain, but it's not. So I'll get my stuff together and see where we go from here. So the plan today is I'm going to try to lap the cases and maybe hone out the pinion shaft hole to see where I'm at, bolt the case together. I'm going to do all this before I glass bead so that I know those things are all done and I don't have to worry about it, and we can clean it up for good. So as we're starting to get ready, it's important that you inspect all your elements of everything that you need. It's time to check things like your pinion shaft and how that fits in your cam cover. You know, there's also the bushing for your cam in here. So we want to know, how does that fit? What is the wear limits on those? So I've gone along here and I'm just sticking one in here to measure up. So what we're going to do is check our cover and check our pinion shaft. First off, we can just go up here and just go here and measure our pinion shaft. And we've got 1 inch 500, or it's not 1 inch, it's 561 thou. And that's the size of our shaft now. So we're going to measure our hole with a little telescoping gauge. We're doing inside holes. So 563.5 thousandths of an inch is the size of the hole there. So we're just going to double check that again because it is a little bearing, so we'll bushing, so we'll do it in cross sides and not just rely on your first measurement. 564 thou. So 564 thou for our outer cover, 561 for our pinion shaft, gives us 3 thou clearance. The wear limits on this is 4 to 5 thousandths of an inch, so we're within under the wear limits. So if everything goes along, we may just leave it alone because it's all kind of wore in together, and there's not really the necessity of replacing it. So we'll go along and we'll check our cam hole now. Just measure that up. I'm like an inch 103.5 thousandths of an inch. And I don't have the cam that's going in it, but I do have one here that's, you know, got minimal wear on it. It's in pretty good shape, and it's a later cam. It's an 80 cam, but and it's an inch and 1.5 thou. So if we take the cam size away from the hole size, we find that we come up with, you know, 2 thousandths of an inch as your measurement. And the wear limits on this particular bushing are 4 to 5 thousandths of an inch. So being as at where we're at, we're good to stay there. We're no need to replace that bushing at all. May tentatively look at the cam bushing, but it's certainly not a priority now for the amount of wear it is there. Okay, so an important step, check those bushings. You know, too much space in the pinion bushing will allow for not getting sufficient pressure. So what happens is the pinion shaft sticks into this hole, and if there's too much clearance here, it can allow oil to seep out past the pinion shaft in the clearance area. The oil comes down in here, comes inside, and there's a pocket cavity in there, and it pumps it into the end of it. This is an end oiler, not a side oiler. Some of the early ones were side oilers. So it pumps it into that cavity and area, which in turn pressurizes and shoves it up the pinion shaft. So if there's excess clearance on this, you get oil seeping by, you can start to get low oil pressure, things like that. The camshaft one is also important because this keeps it in line with the needle bearing on the other side. Now it is a needle bearing, so things do move around a little bit. But the point of having the clearance is good on this is where this cam gear meets up with the pinion gear and how they mesh together. And you know, if it's sloppy, it can bounce up and down and around in there, you know, and then cause wear on both components. So it's important that that is within specs, and that keeps your distance approximately right where it should be. So one of the small parts of it, but quite important. These telescoping tools are, you know, are available everywhere for a pretty cheap price. You can buy a set of imports for what you use them for, and they'll probably be fine. And they're just what they do is they just compress here, so you can shove it in the hole, and then they come out and you put it on a little bit of an angle and tighten it, and then turn it and pull it out. That will give you your measurement on an inside hole. Telescoping gauges come in, you know, fairly basic set like that. You look for them on the internet, and they'll do mostly all the sizes you want to do right up to your cylinders, etc. Good little tool. So while we've got our flywheels apart, we can measure our crank pin next, which we need to know the size of our crank pin. We need to check and make sure that it's round all around. Then we can have a look at the bottom end of our rods, compare the sizes, see where we got to go from there. We will clean the rods up just to put sort of a, you know, a crosshatch sort of pattern in there, back in there again to help them retain oil. Right now we're just going to see what we can get here. 1 inch 249 thou. So we'll check it down here where the other rollers run. The same. The same. So we'll go all around because there is thrust on them. Also down in here you want to check your thrust washers. Just going to give them a little wipe there from any wear we can see on them. And although it looks like a small stain mark on it, I cannot feel it with my fingernails. So this thrust washer is good in here. Even though it's got a small stain on it, it's easy to see that there's no markings, nothing in it. As I say, I can't get my fingernail to even scratch it, so that's good to go. So as we're going along, it's obvious to see that this is not too bad. I've seen things a lot worse. Margaret was way worse, and you know, I've done many of them that are worse, but this one has worn quite nice. I would say it's probably a lower mileage engine, maybe, judging from what I'm seeing, but I certainly don't have the whole engine. But the bottom end was kept full of oil, and so it stayed in good shape as the person drove it. So it saved some costs there today on those, and there's no need to replace either one of those. And it's the same in my other flywheel. As you can see, this one is almost perfect. So we're not gonna do anything with those. So we'll take a measurement, get me a telescoping gauge, right size. And we'll start with our measurements up and down. Now, they will vary in these if they're worn, but if they're close, we've really got a pretty nice little bottom end here. 626. Sounds about right. Pretty close, that's pretty close. 10 thousandths, maybe. We want to take our measurements all around on this. So you take your measurements this way, this way, this way, and this way. And that way it gets measured all around, and you've got a good idea if the hole is concentric or not. This one seems to be really well. And we'll do the same thing and measure all around. This one, there's two sides, so it's important to check both sides. And I've kind of gone around this one, and we're running about 626 on here. Yeah. I'm gonna check the other one. So we got about 1.626 all the way around on this, you know, give or take maybe two 10,000ths of an inch in one spot. But what that means is I'm going to be able to put that on my tool, on my lathe, and just give these a nice pass. And we're not trying to fix an oval hole, so it's already round. So we just need a few nice passes just to put a bit of a crosshatch back in these so that they'll retain oil. So that's good. So we'll also do this with the top pin bushing. 793 on that one. And we'll check our front rod. And I'm 792.5 on that one. So we're really close to that thousandths of an inch fit. I'm a thou and a 1.5 on one. So you can also tell by the way your pin fits in here. And you can tell if it's rattly this way or just a nice sort of fit. Remember, it's got to get oil in there, and we don't want it too tight by any means. I'll see what I'll do. We're talking, 5 10,000ths of an inch maybe over on one, so it's hardly worth fooling with, and you certainly don't want to get them. You certainly want to watch out, make sure you don't get them too tight. So that takes care of looking at our rods. We also have to measure our pinion shaft measurement, because we have to take this size from the hole size to determine what size bearings we need. So again, we're going to take some measurements on here. As best you can get down in there. All right, we'll just set this up here for now. down inside. I'd say on the largest point. So having that measurement there, I can go ahead and make my calculations as to what size roller bearings that I'll need there to fit into the case. But we are going to bolt it together, run a quick line lap through it, try to make sure we're even all the way around before we do that. All right, I think we got our boat covered today. So if you enjoyed this video today, like, subscribe, comment, ring the bell, do those kind of things that helps us to grow. I hope that you found this interesting, and I'm just trying to throw it out there so that anybody who's having to take it apart kind of gives you an idea of all the things you've got to check and all the procedure you've got to go through before you even get started getting the bearings and things that you need. Stick with us next week while we lap the cases together, do our pinion bearing hole and various other, the rods, and a bunch of other steps that we're getting into, so that should be interesting as we go. By the way, if I haven't said so before, check out my brothers down south, Hippie's Chopper Corner and Slickhead's Custom Cycles. So stick with us and check out some of our other videos if you're sticking around, and we'll see you next week.